Welcome to the video. Sit back, dim the lights and enjoy 3 stories bound to make you quiver. The Haunting of Millfield. As the last rays of sunlight disappeared behind the trees, a thick sense of dread settled over the small town of Millfield. The once bustling streets were now abandoned, as if all of the town's inhabitants had suddenly vanished. The silence was broken only by the occasional gust of wind, which seemed to carry with it a whisper of something evil. It was as if the very air was charged with a malevolent energy, waiting to be unleashed on the unsuspecting town. As nightfall approached, the sense of unease only grew stronger. Windows and doors that had been left open earlier in the day were now locked and bolted, as if to keep out something that lurked in the shadows. But it was no use. The darkness seemed to seep through the cracks and crevices, creeping into homes and filling the air with a sense of foreboding. No one knew what was coming, but they all felt it, deep in their bones. And then, just as the last remnants of light faded away, it arrived. A sense of pure terror and darkness, unlike anything that had ever been felt before. It seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once, wrapping itself around the town like a cloak of death. As the darkness closed in, the residents of Millfield began to experience strange and unsettling hallucinations. Some saw monsters lurking in the corners of their eyes, while others heard voices whispering in their ears. But the worst were the dreams. Each night, the town's inhabitants were visited by nightmares so vivid and terrifying that they left them shaking and covered in sweat when they awoke. No one knew what was causing these hallucinations and nightmares, but they all knew that something deep and twisted was at work in their minds. And as the days turned into weeks, it became clear that there was no escape. The darkness had taken hold of the town, and there was no turning back. The residents of Millfield were trapped in a never-ending cycle of fear and horror, doomed to live out their days in a waking nightmare. And as the years passed, the memory of the town faded away, swallowed up by the darkness that had claimed it. The Fisherman's Farewell. The fisherman had been out on the water for hours, and the storm that had rolled in had made the seas rough and choppy. He was soaked to the bone and shivering with cold, but he couldn't bear to leave without at least trying to catch something. As he worked to reel in his line, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The water was churning in a way that made him uneasy, and he could sense that a larger, more powerful force was at play. Despite his instincts, the fisherman didn't want to give up on his catch. He was determined to bring home something for his family, and he gritted his teeth against the rain and wind as he held onto his rod. But it was no use. A giant wave crashed over the side of the boat, knocking the fisherman off his feet and into the water. He flailed and struggled, but the weight of his rain gear dragged him down. Panicked and disoriented, the fisherman struggled to stay afloat, but the water was icy cold and he could feel his energy draining away. He was starting to lose consciousness when he saw a dark shape circling him in the water. At first, he thought it was just his imagination, but as the shape drew closer, he realized with mounting horror that it was a shark. The fisherman's heart pounded in his chest as he tried to swim away, but he was too weak to outmaneuver the predator. As the shark closed in, the fisherman felt a sense of despair wash over him. He knew that this was the end, and that he would never see his family again. But even as the shark's jaws opened wide, the fisherman couldn't help but feel a sense of regret for all the things he had left unfinished. In his final moments, the fisherman thought of his wife and children, and he hoped that they would somehow know that he had died trying to provide for them. And as the shark consumed him, the fisherman closed his eyes and let go, his soul drifting away into the darkness of the sea. Hauntings of an Ex. It was a cold and dreary night, and the rain was pounding against the windows of the rundown cabin nestled deep in the woods. Lisa sat at the kitchen table, staring blankly at the legal documents in front of her. It had been 5 years since she had killed her ex-husband in a car accident, and the guilt still weighed heavily on her conscience. As she signed the papers finalizing her divorce, Lisa couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. She turned around, but the room was empty. Shuddering, she stood up and made her way to bed. Over the next few days, strange things began to happen in the cabin. The sound of footsteps echoed through the halls, and Lisa could feel someone's presence even when she was alone. She tried to ignore it, telling herself it was just her imagination. But the disturbances only grew more intense. One night, as Lisa was tucking her children into bed, she heard a voice whisper her name. She froze, recognizing the voice as that of her ex-husband. The ghost of her ex-husband began to haunt Lisa and her new family, appearing in their dreams and causing objects to move on their own. Lisa was terrified, not knowing how to make the ghost go away. It wasn't until she received a visit from an old friend that she learned the truth about her ex-husband's death. It had not been an accident. Lisa had killed him in a fit of rage and jealousy. Overcome with guilt and fear, Lisa knew she had to make things right. She held a seance and begged her ex-husband's spirit for forgiveness, promising to atone for her actions. But the ghost was not so easily placated. It continued to haunt and torment Lisa and her family, driving them to the brink of madness. And as the nights grew darker and the storms raged on, Lisa knew that she may never be able to escape the ghosts of her past. Thanks for watching my first video. If you enjoyed, please feel free to like the channel and subscribe. Until next time, stay safe and keep your wits about you.